Hey everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Hormonally Speaking. So happy to have you here, back with a new season, and super excited with my guest today. Her name is Lesley King, and she works with people who feel stuck and confused about what's next. They don't just want any job. They want an ideal career aligned with their values and desired lifestyle. She helps them find a new career in a year, which is just amazing to me. Welcome, Lesley.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what you do first, because I think this is such a fascinating thing. Like, how did you end up getting to this point of wanting to work with people to sort of shift into the new places in their lives?
Well, I think that we find what we've also had in our lives.
Hmm.
So when I grew up, I didn't really have any direction, and I was always, one of five children, a second of five children, and nobody really guided me.
Hmm.
So when I went to college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I went into business thinking that would be the thing for me because it's like, whatever, I'll try business. And I
Yeah.
hated it. I was ready to quit. And somebody said, go look at PR. You might be good at that. And so that was my life was like, what am I doing? Who am I? And I had no one that say, take a moment to see who you are and figure it out from there. So I
Hmm.
went over to the film production business or the communications department, and I totally fell in love with film production. I always loved movies. It was fun. It was great. I loved it. But not once did I sit down and say, what does this mean if I work this job? What kind
Hmm.
of lifestyle is it going to be? What will it mean for me? How will I live? How will this make my life look? And will it go with the values that I have in my life? I mean, I didn't even know what
Hmm.
my values were. I didn't even
Right.
sit down and think about how do I want to live my life. I was like, college, job, work,
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's how I got into it. And when I was in film production, I got into it. I started freelancing, and I was really proud of myself for making this all happen. And then that's where I started, was in Atlanta. And then I moved to Los Angeles because I was working on a big TV show at the time. And it was 9 months of working 70 to 80 hours a week.
Oh.
And you started at 7 a.m. every Monday and you ended at 7 a.m. every Sunday or
Hmm.
Saturday. So that meant by the end of the week, I'm coming in at 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the evening.
Right.
It just wears you out
Yeah.
and you have no life.
Yeah.
And so I had to turn around every weekend because then I had to go back like 7 a.m. on Saturday, and then I had to come back at 7 a.m. on Monday. So you're just exhausted that whole
Yeah.
9 months of that. And
Yeah.
when I looked around, I thought, yeah, this is not how I want to live my life. This is the first time I thought, wait a second, maybe this isn't going to align with who I want and who
Mm-hmm.
I want to be. And I had recently gotten married, and he said, hey, let's go live where we play. And so,
Mm.
I said, I don't know what to do. And he goes, well, I've always wanted to do a bed and breakfast. And so, okay. So that started the journey.
I
Jumped on
love
somebody else's dream first. That's never the way
Mm,
to go.
right.
But still, I was not sat down and said, who am I and what do I want in my life? And so years down the road, basically we did the bed and breakfast. That wasn't my lifestyle. And that was the first time I said, ooh, I know how to make, I know how to bake. I love people. I know how to entertain, but I like to work hard and have time off. So that was the first time I said,
100%.
whoa,
Mm-hmm.
that's how I like to work. I'm not interested in being at something for hours and hours and hours waiting for things to happen. So that
Right.
was really interesting to learn that. And then we moved to the Asheville area, and he wanted to open a coffee shop because he also agreed that the bed and breakfast wasn't really for him after doing it for a couple of years. I quit really fast. And so I started a catering business because I was like, this is what the area needed. And so I was doing that. And then we moved to the area, and he said, I want to open a coffee shop. And when we moved to the area, we had just friends that we knew that had a building in Marshall, North Carolina. And they said, we want a coffee shop. So we put the coffee shop in there and started a coffee shop. Well, once again, I'd worked in restaurants as a kid. I'd done the catering. I did the bed and breakfast, those kind of things. But I'd never really done my own business. And my now ex, he had done a business before, but never really worked in a restaurant. So it was this really interesting dynamic. And he brought some things to it, and I brought some things to the table. And we made this coffee shop happen. I don't know if you know Zuma Coffee. It's
Mm-hmm.
downtown Marshall, and I was one of the original owners and set up all the
Nice.
baking and all that kind of stuff from things that I had learned in the past too. So
Mm-hmm.
anyway, here I am, the coffee shop. I'm working full time in the coffee shop. The relationship isn't going well. We're not making enough money. I'm like, somebody has to pull out and make some money. So I'm like, all right, what do I want? And this is once again, first time I thought, what do I want?
Mm.
Well, I want to save the world. That was one thing I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I thought nonprofits, this will be perfect.
Famous last words.
I know. So I started to work in a nonprofit as a fundraiser, which once again, I was totally impressed that I actually got a job doing this because, I started researching it and I'm like, whoa, look, I can make things happen. This is way cool.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the right organization. And this was the first time I worked like 9 to 5. What a weird experience that is, because I was a freelancer, we came in early, we had certain rules. We got off when we were finished. It wasn't like I could actually do anything in the evenings after work because we always worked at least 12-hour days.
Right.
So now I'm getting off at like 4 or 5 o'clock, 5 o'clock. And I'm like, oh gosh, I have all this time. What am I going to do? So it was a very different experience, but it didn't really work for me. I was like, yeah, this is not working. And my marriage fell apart at that time too. So I did right before that marriage fell apart, somebody called and said, hey, are you still in film production? And I'm like, why? They're like, we're moving to town. And I'm thinking money, 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 because that's what we needed at that point. That was all I thought about was money. I was like, we were so broke. I didn't want to lose the house. It was just really hard. So I jumped back on a job and then I jumped on another job and I'm like, all right, I'm back in film production now. And I thought this is a great way to make money. I freelance. I have times I can take work and then times I don't work and I can work in the business and all that kind of stuff. Then the marriage fell apart. So I started to get reestablished in Atlanta where I had started in film production. So I was going back to the town that I actually had worked in. And it was only 4 hours from Asheville. So I was zipping back and forth, staying with friends, or ultimately I ended up renting an apartment. So I reestablished myself in film production, finished the tumultuous divorce that took forever. And I started to make enough money that I could do whatever I wanted in my house. And so what I needed to do when I got back into film production was get out of debt. So that was my goal of getting back into film production. So I got out of debt. Then I started doing projects around my house. And then all of a sudden it was almost 10 years later. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't want to do this back when I quit almost forever ago. Why am I still doing this? And what do we want to do next? And that's when I started on my travels or on my journey to find my next career. And I had to take a moment to sit down and say, who am I and what do I want? And that's when it all started to come together. And that was the first time I worked with a coach. First time I even knew about coaching. So I started working with a coach and I'm like, wait a second. Oh, one little aside. When I was going through my divorce, I'd been married before, but the first time I sort of just blamed it all on him, that he was the jerk and I was fine. The second time I'm like, now wait a second. There are two people in this relationship and I'm having the same issues that I've had before as far as breaking up. So there's got to be something I need to learn. So I started counseling at that point and I learned a huge amount. And when I found out all this information about myself, I thought, oh my God, people need to know this. How can I help them? Well, it was funny because everyone that went through a divorce in Marshall afterwards would call me and I would help them through their divorce. And I didn't realize I was coaching at that point, but they would come to me and say, what do you think? And I said, well, let's take your part in this. Let's make sure you know what your pattern is. Let's make sure you know what your part is so that you do not repeat it. Because trust me, the first lesson's easy, the second lesson's harder, and you do not want to have a third one. So luckily I figured it out in my 2 lessons. So I wanted to help everyone and I was doing that, but I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know what coaching was. So now I'm looking for my next job and I don't know what it is. And I thought, well, who am I and what do I want? And I realized I was a helper type. I wanted to help people, change the world, help change the world. And I love art. So I thought, well, maybe I'll be an art rep. And so I researched that for a little bit when I was working with my coach. And I realized that I wanted to do something that was going to have people engaged also. If I was an art rep, they'd say, here you go, sell my work. And I'm like, yeah, no, I want you to be bought in on this too. So that's why I was like, art isn't really for me, I don't think. And I got a little scared because I didn't really have an art background. I mean, I love art and I've been in art and I've seen tons of art, but I never really had an art history background. So that's what happens at first. You get scared and you run away, which is what I did. I ran away. And it took me a couple more years before I said, okay, I'm doing this. I think coaching's what I want. And let me see how that would work. And so I did. And so it was almost 20 years from I first left film production till I found coaching.
Wow.
and as a career. And I'm like, wow, I don't want anyone to have to wait that long. And then when you get in coaching, they're all like, niche down, figure out what you're going to do. Well, I want to help people, but I thought divorce was what I would help people with, but that's not really what I wanted to help them with. It wasn't like, hey, let's all go for a divorce. It's like, no, let's move on from our divorces. My parents, my dad was dying in 2014 and he was on his deathbed, and he talked about my parents' divorce in 1978.
Wow.
And how it still hurt him and all of that. And I talked to a lot of people that had gone through divorce, and I'm like, all right, guys, you need to realize that what's going to happen is you're going to lose all of your goals together when you break up a relationship or you change something like that. So you have to come up with new goals. You have to come up with who you are. You have to really figure out what's going on in your life. So it wasn't really about divorce that I cared about. It was making sure that once they got finished with the divorce, that they transitioned into something better, that they lived and they had a better life, not a worse life, because they were upset about that, or they were keep repeating things. So it wasn't really divorce. It was transitions. And like, okay, what do I want? And then I realized, oh, this is what I need to help people with, careers, because so many people stay stuck in careers they don't like because they don't know what's next.
And are scared.
And they're scared, but they can figure it out. So that's why I help them, because it's like, you do not want to be stuck. There is no reason to stay in something forever that you do not like.
Right. 100%. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's, thank you for sharing the trajectory of, this.
It's a long one.
But, I think it's, for most of us, as we are, get into our 40s and 50s, it's, we can sit back and really see so much has happened. And that this is the time, particularly, with the audience that listens to this podcast, where these massive changes are usually happening in some form or fashion, right? Maybe the kids are about to leave the home, or, maybe it's a career change, or maybe it's a divorce. All of these things are up big time as these women are starting to go through these hormonal transitions that make things really crazy at the same time, And so it can feel, I think, especially hard for some women to even sort of contemplate some of these big changes sometimes, because it's just like, I don't even know who I am. I'm feeling all of these different crazy emotions, anxiety, all of that kind of thing from these hormonal shifts, and one of the biggest things always when dealing with hormones is actually to start at stress. And to start at, what are sort of my big stressors, maybe the obvious stressors, but then some of these more underlying stressors too, which I think you really kind of spoke to some of those happening in your life, right? And we look at them in a frustrated way a lot of times, but there actually can be what propels us forward too,
Exactly.
But we have to be able to see it that way. And I think this is where, coaching is such a hugely helpful thing. But, within that, when we start to actually identify our role in the situation, as you mentioned, so that's not just with our significant other, but that shows up in all kinds of relationships and can show up in our work and everything too, but then it's like, well, how do I institute a lot of these changes? And to me, it comes back to boundaries a lot of time,
Oh my gosh. It's so funny to talk to my clients, because the first thing that comes up in most of the discussions, they think, I need to find something else because I can't stand my job. I'm like, well, it's going to take a while before you get out of your job, because quitting right away isn't necessarily the best idea.
Right.
So let's make it so that you are happy with where you are first. So, because this is going to lead you down the road to your next thing. Because if you can be happy in this job and you can see what your issues are here, then we can work that for the future too. And other jobs, the same things will always come up, because how we do one thing is how we do everything. So, and boundaries is the first thing. They're so afraid that if they say no to something, that they'll get fired, or they'll get reprimanded, or they'll be like, then everybody's going to think they're difficult. It's like, no, you can say, I like this and I don't like that. I think it's the word a lot of times.
It is. Well, and in general, I think a lot of women were raised in a way that to not have boundaries, we're raised to always be giving, to always put others in front of us. That idea simply of, if I am, honest in my work world, then I'm going to lose my job, which actually probably was true a generation ago, right? A woman couldn't necessarily
Right.
like establish boundaries in her work because they just be like, whatever, we'll, you'll be gone and we'll hire a man. And,
Exactly.
it's a different time now, in that, we have to really start to understand how important these boundaries are for our health,
Right.
and like you're talking about, movement in life, right? And getting to a life that you actually really enjoy. So can we
Exactly.
sort of break down, you mentioned that you talk to people about how to sort of get happy in the place that they are. And then, sort of what boundaries look like in that sense.
Well, it's interesting because, it's boundaries are just giving people an idea of what you want and what you don't want in your life. So I
Mm-hmm.
was talking to one of my clients about boundaries, and I'm trying to come up with other ideas on ways to tell her, because she's freaking out. She's like,
Mm-hmm.
I can't put boundaries down. They're going to fire me. Oh my God, they're going to be so upset if I put boundaries down. I mean, that's the discussion that I get.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got a new cat. I got a new kitten.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about the boundaries and everything. And then the cat started to do something I didn't want.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of yelling at it and screaming at it and throwing it outside and going, making a big deal out of it, just said, hey, that's
Mm-hmm.
not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's a lot of it. We put way too much energy on these things that we call boundaries.
Yeah.
And they're really very simple. It's like saying, hey, I like my hair parted this way instead of that way to my hairdresser. I
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
longer hair now. I want more, it's just very simple stuff. And if
Yep.
we take the energy off of the boundaries, it's a lot easier to start setting them.
Yeah. And I think I'm glad that you just brought up those points, because, the sort of maybe smaller or littler boundaries are a great place to start to create a muscle reflex, essentially, right? Because
Right.
when you haven't really set boundaries in your life very often, then it can feel really threatening to your ego even to start doing that, right? Like, who are you to believe that you can set these boundaries? Even, I've seen that with some of my clients, that they don't necessarily see that that's what's going on, but that's part of it. And so it's like, all right, let's start to build that muscle. Like,
Right.
what are these little ways? And I think people just don't even a lot of times think about that. Like, I think about, in the past, so many situations, and I can still follow into this people pleaser thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just want to make sure everything's okay and everybody's comfortable. So even, when your hairdresser says, oh, well, I think it would look better this way. And, you fall into like, okay, sure. Maybe if you
Right.
think that, you're the expert, versus no, what do I want? And let me like just be clear about this. And they're not going to be upset about it. And if they are, that's on them,
Right. Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
that's when I talk to my clients. That's one of the ways I start with them, is to help them with their own boundaries first.
Hmm.
Put them for yourself. Set a
Hmm.
boundary for yourself. Like,
Yes.
I want to bike and walk.
Hmm.
So, it's a habit, but it's also, you can say, I'm going to do this, and you're
Yes.
going to honor that boundary.
Yeah.
So I think that that's part of it to start with yourself. But
Yeah.
even when it comes to relationships, like cats, boyfriends, partners of any
Hmm.
sort,
Hmm.
friendships,
Hmm.
it's very interesting. Somebody was telling me, oh, when people ask for certain things, you can go, oh, God, you're being so picky. Or you can say, oh, that's just a boundary that they're asking me
Hmm. Hmm.
to honor,
Yep.
So it's
Absolutely.
very interesting to just look at it differently,
Yeah.
instead of going, oh my God, you're so bossy, or oh my God, you just want it your way. It's like, okay, well, that's how they want it. What do I want from
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
What can I add to this relationship?
Yes, that's a good mindset shift. And I think about, like, a lot of times people will say, maybe like Europeans in general, much more like blunt than Americans are, and that's a perfect example of they have a different way around boundaries. Like, they just grow up in this, like, I'm just stating my needs kind of a situation in
Exactly.
general, right? That's a generalization, but it's just culturally more accepted. And I think, especially if you're from the South,
Right.
this like, I've got to be like the sweet woman comes up for so many people. But circling back to when you just talked about the personal boundaries, I love that you brought that up. I think actually, when it comes to hormones and overall health, those are the most important boundaries that you're going to set, and that understanding, like you just talked about, like, there's habits is part of the deal, but like, kind of understanding that this is a boundary that you're creating for the self that you want to get to,
Exactly.
for that you want to feel the energy that maybe you haven't been feeling. You want to be able to, get rid of the brain fog. You want to do all these things. There are steps that we have to take and be consistent in that.
Mhm.
And step away from self-sabotage. And
Right.
I mean, I know what self-sabotage looks like. I've been there
We
many
all
times.
do.
And, you know, we all do. And we're all going to experience it sometimes, right? But again, it's a muscle building situation where, you know, for example, say that you find out that gluten is not good for your body, you know, it is a boundary that you create that's going to help your health in tremendous ways if you stick to it, you know. And I know a lot of times, like, say for instance, some of my clients will just be like, oh well, I was at this family event, or, you know, I was hanging out with my friends and I felt bad because they made something, you
Yeah,
know, and I get it. But the reality is, if you want that more energy, if you want your hormones to, you know, be better and your body to feel better, if this is that truth for you, you actually have to stick with that boundary.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I think one of the biggest boundaries that I learned with my coach and just over the last couple of years is having my own back, you know, being kind to
Yeah.
myself and giving myself a break on things
Yeah.
instead of going, oh my gosh, you screwed up. You didn't hold to that
Yeah.
boundary. You didn't bike. You didn't walk. Oh my gosh, you are a big fat loser. And
Right.
that got me nowhere.
Absolutely.
And
The
so
shame
just
game. Yeah.
adding, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
adding that boundary to my
Mm-hmm.
life
Mm-hmm.
changed my life. And it was
Mm.
a hard one to
Yeah.
learn. I
Yeah.
had to constantly think about, okay, let's be kind. Let's be
Yeah.
kind. Let me treat myself like I'm a friend or
Yeah.
whatever, how I would treat somebody else. But you know, those kind of boundaries are, they sound like, oh, whatever, having your back. It's
Yeah.
a hard one. It was a
It's
really
a,
hard one for me.
I agree. And I think that that comes up obviously in the health world so much, right? Because especially now with the Instagram, like, perfection ideals that are out there, which
Oh yeah.
absolutely none of those people are actually doing all the things that they're saying that they're doing, you know, 100% of the time. There is so much shame that comes up, you know, in any kind of drifting that happens. And absolutely, I 100% agree with you. It's like, this is, you know, you're going to fall off the horse. Every
Exactly.
one of us are going to fall off the horse multiple times. So it's not about
Exactly.
focusing on that aspect, and more an acceptance. I think that
Right.
the more that you accept that that's going to happen. And for me, that was a big lesson, because I used to beat myself up so much, you know, when I went through a period of time when I was vegan and, you know, trying to not eat any sugar, and then would just kind of go into binge mode. Right. And it would
Uh,
be binging on like vegan cookies and vegan ice cream kind of a thing, but binging nonetheless, you know,
right.
like, it doesn't really matter that it was vegan. And how you get caught up in that from, you
In
know,
that
that
spiral. Well,
in the
now you
spiral.
failed, so you might as well
Mhm.
just give up.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
it's like I have a
Balls out.
client that
Hmm.
yeah, I have a client I'm working with right now, and one of her things is her schedule. It's very difficult. She's much rather be, you know, talking to people than doing the
Hmm.
crappy stuff she has to do at her desk by herself.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so, and figuring out that schedule, getting everything done that you need. I mean, scheduling's always hard for
Ugh,
everyone.
yeah.
But like last week, I said, how did you do? She wanted to get to work at 10 till 9 and she wanted to leave at 5.
Hmm.
And I said, okay, work with your alarms, you know,
Hmm.
figure those out. We had this whole plan. She did it twice last week, that she
Hmm.
got to work twice
Hmm.
that she wanted, and she left twice at 5 out of the 5 days. I'm like, good for you.
Winning. Yep.
Happy that you
Yep.
did that. Now, next week, try one more, you know,
Yep.
but don't think that you're going to be able to do it all at once. It's
Yep.
just not going to happen.
Yep.
And to be kind to yourself along the way, because if you beat yourself up, then you're never going to do it. You'll be like, oh
Absolutely.
my God,
Right.
if I don't do this, I'm going to beat myself up. And I don't want to deal with that beating myself up.
Yep.
So be
Absolutely.
kind the whole time. You
Yeah.
know?
And I also think I've seen this with clients, I've seen it with myself too. Sometimes when you get in this mindset, well, first of all, a lot of people can do the 3 weeks or a month or what have you know, like all the diets that are out
Yeah, yeah,
there,
yeah.
or like going to the gym or whatever, but that's not going to last. Right. But they get into this mindset that, well, that worked before, so I'm going to do it again. And then maybe it's harder to do it that second time. It doesn't work, you know? And it's like, because you didn't really create change. You didn't
Right,
create true change in 3 to 4 weeks. That's never going to happen. Right.
right.
And it really, you know, I always, with my clients, I'm like, low and slow, low and slow. Let's do it low and slow and build your way up. Again, it's like a muscle. And sometimes it may take years, you
Yep.
know? I mean, I always tell people that I had a battle with sugar for so long, and I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And it's really just in the past few years that that's no longer a battle for me,
Right.
you know? And so I think that's again where the non-shaming aspect, you know, I think I probably would have gotten there faster actually, and it had this different
Yeah,
relationship had I not gone through that blame shame, you know, and then
exactly.
ideal, like perfection ideal mode too, right?
Nobody's
That's the,
perfect.
yep,
Nobody's perfect.
exactly.
It's like the New Year's resolutions. You know, people have all these lists of New Year's resolutions, and then it comes to the end of January and they're failing. So
Yep.
instead of going, well, I screwed up, they say, okay, I guess it's over with now.
Yep.
And instead you're like, every day is a new day. You know,
Absolutely. Right.
January 1st is just a day.
Exactly.
You
That
say,
we
okay,
like
well, I
set.
did this much this month. Now
Yep.
next month, let me see if I can beat that. You know,
Yep.
and that's the only thing you have to do.
Yep.
And it's much saner, and you'll feel much better about yourself along the
Yep.
way. And when you feel good about yourself, it's easier to hold to your boundaries.
Yes. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to food.
Yep.
You know, when do you want the chocolate and the ice cream and all that kind of stuff? It's when you're feeling a little crappy. And so you
Absolutely.
start to feel crappy, and then you're going to go right down that road going, well, I want to do what I'm not supposed to be doing.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's all about making sure you feel good.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. And I actually just you know, recently did an article on oxytocin, which is, you know, one of our pleasure hormones and neurotransmitters, is actually both. And a lot of people just think about it like, oh, when you're breastfeeding or when you have sex, like those are the most common times that we know about it. But there's lots of things that can kick off our oxytocin. And it's actually a balancing hormone to cortisol, our stress hormone, you know. And so I think, and I'm guilty of this too, a lot of times I focus just on, well, what does the stress reduction look like? What does the cortisol, leveling out the cortisol look like? But it's just as important to actually focus on the fun. You know, the
Right.
fun kicks off the oxytocin. And from, you know, what we're sort of talking about, building that sort of respect for yourself and the things that you're doing and appreciating yourself, that's all going to actually feed into that pathway, right? And
Exactly.
bring more of that. And so then you are building on that over time, rather than, you know, just sort of staying in the place where I'm trying to just reduce my stress, which
Right.
sometimes can be more stressful than anything else,
Very
right?
stressful.
So, yeah,
So
so it's like,
yeah.
what's the antidote here to that,
And I
you
think
know?
that celebrating is a huge way of doing that too, because
Mm-hmm.
the more, you know, when you have a good reaction to how you're doing things. So she made it 2 days
Mm-hmm.
on both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you.
Yes.
Celebrate. How are you going
Yeah.
to celebrate?
Yeah.
You know, and that's something that we don't do on a regular basis. I know that
Absolutely.
I can be very bad about it too. It's like, oh, I need to celebrate something because I just did great things.
Yeah.
Like blah, blah, blah to my coach. And she's like, wait. You
Yeah.
just said this.
Yeah.
Celebrate that. You know, so
Yep.
it's really important to take a moment. And that helps build that whole muscle, because if
Yes.
you, like, I love to bike, but when I get back to biking, which I'm getting back to now that it's getting warmer again,
Mm-hmm.
I get excited when I bike, but it's really hard to get on the bike some days. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, it'd be so much easier just to not get on the bike.
Yep.
It's windy outside, it's cold. Well,
Yep.
with the wind chill, it'll be even colder. I mean, I have a million excuses.
Of course. Yeah.
Your brain is there to protect you, and it wants
Yep.
to keep you lazy and, you
And
know,
safe. That's the idea, right? Mm-hmm.
so if I think, oh my gosh, I could crash, I will never go biking.
Yeah.
So I just have to go, it's going to be okay. And if I go once this week, I'll be happy. If I go
Yeah.
twice next week, I'll be happy. If I go twice the week after, I'll be happy. And I just have to, little baby steps that make it so that I'm like, good, I did it. I'm so happy I did it. You know, so it's hard to get these things started. It's hard to put boundaries down. It's hard to tell people no on things, because we do want everyone to be happy around us.
Yep.
We don't want to upset people.
Right.
But really, it's much better to know what it is that they want. You know, I'd much rather know that my boyfriend wants me to do this and not do that.
Yeah.
So that I know what the rules are. You know, it's I'm definitely the type of like, tell me the rules and I'm not going to do them if they're stupid. But
right.
But I'm like, I'm open to knowing what the rules are so that you can work around them. You
Absolutely.
know, just like, even in artwork, they say you need to know how to paint by the rules, and then you can take it to whatever extreme you want.
Yep.
So it's just really interesting, all that stuff.
Absolutely. It is actually creating safety by setting out the rules, you know? And so I want to go back actually, just because I think this is another important part that, you know, a lot of people don't necessarily see in this way, and that's mindset, right? And what you just brought up actually about you know, you did it twice in 5 days, getting to work on the time that you wanted to and leaving when you wanted to. You know, some people and I think we've all been in this situation, would look at that as like, oh, I failed. I only did it twice
Yep.
this week, right? Versus, oh my God, I totally did it twice this week and succeeded, right? And that, I just wanted to point that out because that is mindset right there. Like when
Right.
people were like, what does mindset mean? That is mindset. You are shifting how you perceive a situation to the sort of betterment or sort of the positive side of it rather than what we as human beings tend to fall easily into is looking at the negative, right? They always say you can get 20, messages saying how great you are, and then that one message saying how horrible you are is what sticks with you,
Right.
like, and so this is where creating the life that we want to lead, mindset is such a huge part of it,
It
right?
is, it is. And it's so important to remember that our brain is always trying to protect us. So
Yeah.
it always brings up the negative
Yep.
first.
It's like
So to
scanning for the negative.
Yeah,
Yep.
what can I find that's going to be danger? I need to
Yep.
point that out to her.
Yep.
And so that's why it really takes a mindset shift
Yep.
and an effort to look at the positive.
Yep.
All those things about gratitudes and stuff. They say, okay, write 3 gratitudes a day.
Yep.
Well, just even taking a moment to go, wow, what am I grateful for right now? Or what can I celebrate in my life right now will help to change that.
Yep.
And it's a practice. It
Yep.
doesn't happen overnight. So
it's true. It's true. And, really mindset and boundaries work together.
oh my gosh.
Like peas and carrots, it's
For sure.
I think whether you're changing your career or you're, getting in or out of a relationship, any of these things, health wise, it's so, so important to have both of those if you're trying to get out of, especially if we're talking chronic illness. Chronic illness is a really, really intense place to be. Autoimmunity is so prevalent now in our culture, and it's hard to get out of the funk of those, especially when you're not feeling well. And so it's like you almost have to double down, honestly, on the mindset stuff and and obviously the boundary setting stuff. A lot of times, that's not even, your body gives you no other choice other than to create boundaries. So probably a lot of people with chronic illness actually know a lot about boundary setting, but yeah, it's I think for me, with a lot of the clients I work with, and I get it. They're like, tell me what to eat, tell me which supplements to take, tell me which exercises to do, and all of that is, important for sure. But until we really start shifting the way that we're living our lives and getting really clear in the boundaries we need to be setting and the mindset part, all of that's not really actually going to work to truly improve your health, right?
Exactly.
It's all
It's
this other stuff
important.
that's going on.
Yeah, the mindset's so important. It's like so much, I talk to my clients immediately about, I call them thought dumps. Like in the morning, write down everything that you're thinking. And I'm not saying it has to be all negative. It doesn't have to be all positive. Just write down everything. So you know what your brain is putting out for you. And then you can go, okay, this isn't going to be helpful, but I do like this thought and I'm going to stick with that one today. Or, oh, that's not a very helpful thought. How can I turn that thought around? So just little things like that will
That's
make
a great exercise.
Oh, I
That's
love
fantastic
that
exercise. Yeah. What are some of your other favorite approaches to help people in this area?
Well, I think boundaries are, the boundary thing. It's like, okay, you have to have one boundary today, just one, like it just depends on each person. It's so interesting to hear what they have issues about. And even for me, just even setting boundaries for my boyfriend was a little difficult. It's like, oh, he's going to be upset. And I'm like, but it's all about how I approached it, and if he was going to be upset, knowing that he was going to be a little taken aback, maybe because I was like, okay, I'm going to say, you can't do this, or please don't do this. And I let him have his reaction to it and I didn't take it on, and it worked out perfectly because then he knows what I want, and then I know what he wants. It's like, tell me what you want, so it's really interesting to take the energy away from the negative energy, away from the thought that you have about that boundary. So I even tell people to just change the word. It doesn't have to be boundary. Boundary might be too big of a word for you. So just change it. Okay, here's the new rule, or here's the new thing I'm going to instill in this, this is what I'm going to do. But it doesn't have, you don't have to use those words, because words, we put a lot of energy around our words.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. And it can be certainly very threatening in certain situations to throw that word around. I can, see that. So when you work with people and, you focus on shifting within a year. Is that correct? So what does that process look like?
So the first thing that we have to do is when people are in confusion, their
Mhm.
brain's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. That's the
Mhm.
only thing they can think about is what they
Mhm.
don't know what they can do. So it's
Mhm.
all about getting clarity. So I
Mhm.
start with that. I start with finding out, the skills, your
Mhm.
accomplishments, what you think about different things, lots
Yeah.
of writing prompts and stuff to go, hey, what do you think about work? What do you think about this? What do you think about that?
Mhm.
But you're
Mhm.
just thinking differently. You're
Yeah.
just looking at things differently. Because
Yeah.
once again, I never sat down and said, how do I want to live my life? And so then we look at all of that too. Well, how do
Mhm.
you want to live your life? What's
Mhm.
important to you?
Mhm.
And so I take them through that clarity exercise.
Mhm.
And then we start to go through the objections that you're starting to come up. Because what happens,
Mm.
your brain's
Yeah.
like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
this career, you only have 10 more years, or you only have 7 more years, or you only have 15 more years,
Yeah.
and you'll be retired. Why are you going through this process now?
Right.
So it's like, okay, so we talk about all those objections that are going to start coming up
Mhm.
because they will. They'll
Oh
start
yeah.
coming a lot.
Yep. Mhm.
And then I start helping them start dreaming about new things and, thinking about what they want in their life and how to look at it. And I try to get them to figure out what life they want first. And then we find the job that aligns with that, and
Mm.
values, very
Mhm.
important, values,
Mhm.
exercises, all of that. And then
Mhm.
have them figure out 3 options. We get
Mhm.
down to a point where it's 3 options because after you dream about everything, and I tell them, if you want to go to the moon, if you want to be an astronaut, write that down.
Mm.
Don't limit anything. It's not about if you can do it or how you're going to do it. It's just about dreaming about something that sounds like fun,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And then we
Mhm.
come up with the 3 options and we've worked harder to get to those. Like, okay, does this align with how your life is going to be? Like I had one client that wanted to do microgreens, but then she
Mhm.
also wanted to travel and not be stuck. And she
Yeah.
felt like, I'm like, I want a farm. I'm like, really? You want a farm? But you want all these other things too. So
Right.
that's not really going to work for you.
Right.
So it's like aligning. So now that we know what you want in your life, now we can compare the jobs to that life and will that
Mhm.
give you the life that you want. And then
Mhm.
we explore those jobs and then we look at the future we do the job search, and then I help them get to that position. So
Nice.
when you look at all the different jobs, you go talk to people that are doing those jobs because we always have an idea of what's going on, but we don't our idea might be something different. When I got into
Totally.
film production, I learned how to be a director, an editor, producer, and actor. I thought, okay, what else is there?
Yeah.
You get on set, there were 100 different jobs of
Mm.
people on set. And
Mhm.
then you look at the credits and look at all those credits. There's
It's
so
true.
many
Lots of
people.
names. Yeah.
So when you say film production, it's not
Yeah.
like, oh, I work in film production. You think, oh, what do you do? Do you shoot films and all of that kind of stuff? No, I was a script supervisor, and
Yeah.
that job I wouldn't have even known about until I went on set. So there's
Right.
so many things that you've never even thought about because we
Mm.
haven't explored them. So I have them
Mhm.
start looking at that. So you want this field, let's look at all the options within that field. Let's talk to people in each of those positions,
Mhm.
and then you're going to see what the job is really like. So
Mhm.
that helps too. So we narrow it down, we look and look and look, and then we find that position. Some people find it faster, some people
Yeah.
don't.
Of
Some
course.
people they're like, okay, I'm just going to get a franchise, and that's fine too, as long
Yeah.
as it aligns with what they want. So there's
Yeah.
so many things out there that you just cannot even see. I'm
Mm.
great with new perspectives because without a new perspective, you're not going to come up with anything else. So,
Right. Right.
and on
Yeah.
set, that's what I did. I was next to the director and the director of photography and the assistant director who's like managing the set, but the director, and I'm like, oh, so did you ever think about this? Or what about that shirt that they were wearing in the last job? Or the last shot that we saw them? Did they do anything in between? And,
Mhm.
like, let's continue the story. Let's look deeper at the details of the story. Let's look at all these things. And that's what I do. I help them look at different things. You
Nice.
say this, but what about this? So it's always coming up with new ideas and things.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do is go to 1 million cups on a
Mhm.
regular basis because
Mhm.
what these people, they have these problems and they solve them with
Yeah. Mm.
amazing
Yep. Yep.
creativity. And so
Mhm.
I just love to know what they're doing so I can give those examples when I talk to
Yeah.
my clients too. It's like, hey, there's always something to come up with. Let's
It's
find the
true.
problem.
Yeah.
So much
Well,
stuff.
I like a lot of that process that you're talking about because for me it's similar to the healing process actually,
It is.
It's like particularly when you talked about the stuff that comes up, right?
Oh
When
yeah.
the beginning is always exciting. Like, oh yeah, I want to feel better. It's going to be awesome. Let's do this thing. You know, I have so many clients that are like, I want to do it all right now, all at once. It's going to be
Yeah.
amazing, you know? And then you start getting into it and all of the safety things come up, right? Your brain's like, oh, this isn't working, or, oh, this is, you know, I'm feeling worse, or, oh, and it's like, this is actually a part of the healing process, right? And we need to work with that and through that, right? It is not a sign that this isn't the right thing to do. You know, it's like we have to do this. And it's such a, I think that that is the hard part, is that even though most of us as human beings probably get that, as I'm saying that out loud, like we've all
Yeah.
experienced it, we forget that that's going to come up, you know, each and every time. So it's like, whether you're trying to find a new job, you know, whether you're trying to get into a new relationship, all of these things, you're going to have sort of that exciting period in the beginning. And then the I don't want to say the things that are trying to inhibit you exactly come up, but it's those protection mechanisms in your body that are
Yeah, you get
like,
afraid.
yeah, exactly. It's like, you don't need to do this. And it's like, we got to ride this wave, and then, you know, come up with these different ways to really sort of support that process. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Your
yeah,
brain's like, you've made a mistake. Why did you think this was going to work?
yep,
What are you,
totally.
crazy? You didn't
Yep.
have that much longer to work. Why are you doing this? You know,
Yep.
so yeah.
Right. All of those things. And you're like, all right. And this is why it's so important in any instance, I think, of making a big change in your life. It's really helpful to have a coach,
Oh my
right?
gosh. It's just amazing because they do help you. Like I can come to my coach meeting and be like, oh, and she's like, well, what about, wait a second, you just said this. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that
Yeah.
means
I
something.
wouldn't have
Oh,
caught that myself. Yeah.
I'd never. You
Yeah.
just don't catch it for yourself. And I think, well, I'm a coach. Why don't I catch these things? Because I'm not looking at myself the same way. I'm
Exactly.
not looking at myself objectively. I'm not
Right.
listening to everything that I'm saying and going, wait a second, is that true? It's like,
Right.
can you believe these crazy things? You know,
Right.
so
Right. Right.
it's so funny.
Yeah. And so anybody, you know, anybody who's listening and sort of understands, or now after listening to this conversation understands how much coaching can help them, why don't you let them know how they could reach out to you and contact you?
So my name is Lesley King, and so it's Lesley King Empower, and
Mhm.
I'm all over social media: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok.
Look at
I'm
you.
also
Good job.
on YouTube. I have
Mhm.
Tuesday tips that come out every week, every Tuesday. And
Nice.
those are on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. So you can try to find me. And I also have a website, lesleykingempower.com.
Perfect. We'll definitely have that in the show notes so people
Thank
can
you.
link directly there for sure. Thank you so much, Lesley, for being here with us today. Like, what a great conversation.
Great.
I really think it's so just useful for women to hear again and again what this process is like in making change. You know, that's really what it is. Like, you
It
know,
is.
the
Yeah.
changes that we make in our lives. And we're going to, no matter how old we are, hopefully we continue to make some big changes at different points, because it is part of what feeds us in life ultimately, right? That growth factor.
Right.
So I think it's beautiful. I think if you're still working in your 60s and you want to change your career, do it.
Exactly.
Contact
Well, there's
Lesley.
that
She'll help
great
you.
book by Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic. And she was
Yeah.
talking about the woman who was her neighbor that was 90. And the woman said that
Mm,
she, at 80, she decided she wanted to be an expert at Mesopotamian culture.
right.
And she was at
Yeah.
90.
Yeah.
Between 80 and 90, she became an expert, and,
Yeah.
and she is world known
Right.
because of that at that point. It's like, yeah. And the people that live longer, I think, have purpose and that make that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think that you can make a change by adding one boundary to your life and do it for yourself first. But it is, like you said, it takes practice. So
Mhm.
doing it for yourself first and then expanding out is the way to do it. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Perfect.
great discussion. Thank
So
you so
good.
much for inviting
Absolutely. I'm so glad that
me.
you were here.
Yeah,
Okay,
definitely.
everybody. Thanks for being here with us, and I will see you next week.